topics are tweeted and retweeted and include simple click-to-listen audio links. The future of talk radio is topic-driven talk radio. Available now at TalkStreamLive.com. Revolution Radio.
You don't see it, do you? How close we are to absolute chaos. The sick ones are sitting on their fat asses, eating and drinking themselves into a stupor, polluting the world without a second thought while it goes down the toilet. Nobody wants to do the nasty work. You know, the shit that we all just think about. Most good citizens are just along for the ride and then bitch and moan and complain about everything when it doesn't work out. Not me. Get it done.
Revolution Radio, where we do the nasty work. www.freedomslips.com.
You're caught in a dream. The adventure begins. Put your seatbacks and tray tables in the upright position as we take a trip in the very fabric of reality. Join me, Andrew Bartis, for Adventures into Reality, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 10 a.m. to 12 noon at Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps.
Necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation. Survival from gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns. You have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is. Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
All right, we're back. My guest is J.B. Campbell. I've just added the way to support Revolution Radio up on my website now, and that'll be up there in 5 minutes along with today's show. So, folks, you know, you can listen to the other radio stations out there, the ones that don't talk about the Jews, the ones that don't talk about the BHF, don't talk about the CIA, Mossad drug dealing. You can listen to all those and get a lot of commercials. Or you can listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com and just get the truth. And varied opinions. Not all thoughts are their own. I don't, I call them trolls. They're people that don't want to support anybody that's been fighting these bastards for 20 years. They'd rather find fault with something I said, or the way I breathe, or the color of my hair, or something like that, rather than discuss the issues that we're discussing right here. JB, I've also questioned whether or not have people just been dumbed down by the public school system. And by the way, I do have answers up on my website for that. I've got Timothy Bible College in the Little Red Schoolhouse that is responsible for graduating hundreds of children that were simply too bright for the public school system that couldn't be controlled. And we've got answers up there. We've got ways that you can support us. Both Revolution Radio and the Free American have Solovay phones. So you click on any of the links for Solovay phones and cut the funding off to Verizon and AT&T and Sprint. The same phone companies that gave your government access to your cell phones. Well, Solovay didn't do that. And also we've got Pure Effect anti-radiation water filters up on the site. If you want to take the fluoride out of your water, you want to take the Fukushima radioactivity out of your water, you can do that with Pure Effect water filters. And you can order my books. You can be reading one of my books tonight for about $10 up on my website. You can get the PDF. If you like it, then you can get the hard copy, which is printed by the Texas Independence Movement, right in Texas. If you ever watch Jericho, I think that's the way that series Jericho is short-lived, but pretty accurate about what would happen in an atomic attack. And that's one of the things that Homeland Security is preparing for. Now, the clip that we played earlier of Congress talking about classified this, classified that did come from The Onion, but it was filmed, that was real, and that was scary. What are they preparing for, do you think, JB? I mean, they're saying otherworldly strength and huge size. What are they talking about? I mean, are we talking about... they're not talking about illegal aliens. They're short and fat and hungry. So what are they talking about in that clip?
Well, I haven't seen it, but I know that the government is preparing for only one thing, and that's a crackdown. That's total martial law. They did a run through in Boston, seeming pretty successful from their point of view. Bostonians got taken by surprise. We had to put ourselves in their position. Most people aren't at my level of readiness to kill, but the people at Waco were, and they were actually very peaceful people. So if those people could do that, anybody can do it. And that's got to be our model for what you're pointing out. What do they want? They want a crackdown. They want total martial law. So the only way to prevent this is like a half a dozen total disasters for the martial law men. They have to be wiped out, and the police state will collapse in America. All plans for the police state will evaporate overnight. If the Bostonians had done what the people at Waco did, there'd be no more discussion. It'd be all over. But they failed. They're not the Bostonians of 1775. These are urban metrosexual people who were not ready to fight to the death. Now, how do we juxtapose that with what happened at Waco on February 28th, 1993? can't. I mean, 700,000 people were buffaloed by a few hundred uniforms. So this is a total disgrace. And it must never, never, never happen again in America. The next time they try this, and they will, we have to kill them all. It's, you may say, what the hell is he talking about? Well, this is life, you know? Either you stand up for yourself and don't allow any intimidation, or you just roll over and give up. That's the choice we have now. That's what they want. So we don't want to do what they want. We want to do what we want. We're the bosses. We pay the bills. The guy who pays the bill is the boss. These guys in the camouflage uniforms and the black uniforms, you watch these guys bunched up like a bunch of turkeys. They're so afraid. They got their little 223 rifles up to their shoulders. They're bunched up and going along the sidewalk and waving their guns in all directions like they're about to be opened up on. Well, they weren't about to be opened up on. They should have been. They should have been wiped out. But they weren't. But these guys in their camouflage and their black uniforms, they're not real. These are a bunch of parasites with guns, the most dangerous parasites of all. They got guns that we gave them. We paid for those stupid things. So we got to take them back now because they've shown that they're not trustworthy. They're treacherous. They betrayed us. They went door to door and pulled people out of their homes with their hands up and total surrender. Oh my God, a total disgrace. Un-American, anti-American. Must never, never happen again. That's our mission now. We know what can happen. Those two kids that are the patsies, they surrendered. You know, apparently they were in good shape, both of them, when they surrendered. Pretty soon, the older brother was torn up. His body was torn up, and the younger one has a throat wound.
And may never
I mean, you can see him getting out of the damn boat, and he didn't have a throat wound. But after he surrendered, he had a deadly throat wound. So that's what you get when you surrender to these bastards. There's no mercy shown to you, and we must show them no mercy. That's the way of the future. No mercy to traitors and treacherous bastards who are supplied with our tax money and our guns and our uniforms and our cars and everything else they've got in the gravy train.
This, one of the articles that I'm going to be working on this week, and is talking about echoing something that I've mentioned many times here. If a man with a badge can walk up and say, "What's that you got in your pocket? Is that smell like marijuana? You been smoking marijuana? Is that cocaine? Look at what you got here. That's cocaine. Oh boy, you're gonna do time. You are in a police state. If the government can make cabbage illegal suddenly, a plant that God gave us, or cotton, or tobacco, or hemp, then you live in a police state. Now, and I'm sure I'll get sick. Oh, Clay wants that legalized pot. He likes to smoke pot. Yeah, I've been smoking it for 40 years. And guess what? I'm healthier than anybody that's been on pharmaceutical medication for the last 40 years. I don't get sick. I don't go to the hospital. I don't need doctors. As far as I'm concerned, a doctor is just a legal drug dealer. And I'm not even in favor of the medical marijuana, although that's a step in the right direction. Why should I have to pay a doctor for something I can grow in my backyard? Oh, well, so the feds won't come in and arrest you. Well, Roger Christie said this is a sacrament. This is my sacrament. He founded THC Ministries over in Hawaii. I had him on my radio show, JB. And within 30 days, the feds had come in and arrested him. They have held him for 3 years, saying he's a danger to the community, and they haven't given him bail. He hasn't gone to trial. He's been imprisoned for 3 years in Hawaii for calling the plant of renown mentioned in the Bible a sacrament. So my...
Okay. So, I mean, here's the lesson. No surrender. We know now what these guys do. Every time we surrender to them in good faith, thinking, oh, they're going to treat us okay. No, they're not going to treat you okay. They're going to do what they did to this guy for nothing. They're going to do what they did to the Tsarnaev brothers. They're going to do what they did to Lee Oswald. They're going to kill you. Slowly or quickly. They're going to do what they did to the brother of that Utah lawyer that they captured by mistake and thought he was part of the Oklahoma City deal. They beat him to death and said he committed suicide. That's what they're going to do to you now. If you surrender, you're going to get killed. You're going to hang yourself in your cell in some impossible way that's never been done before. That's what happens to you when you surrender. Now, this poor guy in Hawaii, you say he's been in prison or in jail for 3 years. Okay, that's all we need to know. No surrender. I mean, is anybody still thinking about surrendering? Now, in this day and age, if you are, you deserve it. We got guns. We got more guns than we got cars in this country. Now, the question is, do we have the will to use these guns? There's no way to get the guns away from us. The government has finally given up on that. There's no way. The ammunition problem is a good way. But that's going to be solved here pretty soon. We're going to have more ammunition. We should have plenty of ammunition anyway.
There is
before
plenty
this
of
crisis
ammunition. There is plenty of ammunition out there, but it's all been given to Homeland Security, all hollow point bullets, which are, by the way, illegal in warfare under the latest convention. Why would Homeland Security, not the Army, not CIA, Obama's told us what he needed, a civilian force as equal to our military. That's because they're scared to death of the military. They're scared to death that some of us oath keepers, some of us veterans, might not just fall on our knees and put our hands up. They're scared to death of that, aren't they?
Well, they must be. They must be because our Jewish senator from San Francisco, Dianne Feinstein, incredibly slandered veterans, all veterans, not some veterans. She said that all veterans have PTSD and should therefore be precluded from owning assault weapons. Now, this is the Jewish attitude towards veterans. Veterans are considered now by the government the #1 terrorist threat in America. And Senator Dianne Feinstein elucidated this. She enunciated this policy by saying that all veterans have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Therefore, they are not mentally competent and should not own what she calls assault weapons, which the Homeland Security calls, when they want them, they're called personal defense weapons. When we have them in our hot little hands, they're called assault weapons. Okay, now did any Jew anywhere in America say, Senator Feinstein, how dare you slander these wonderful boys and girls who fought for our freedom in Iraq and Afghanistan on behalf of Israel? How dare you slander them by saying that they are not mentally competent? No, not one Jew came to the defense of these veterans. did our anti-Semitic, quote-unquote, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel come to the defense of the veterans under his administration? No, he didn't say a word. Nobody said a word except Feinstein. She said the word because she's a Jew. And Jews are allowed to say anything, no matter how outrageous, and never get called on it. Did the press say, oh my God? She said, oh, veterans are crazy. No, they didn't say a word. They're afraid to say a word, because if they said a word about Feinstein, well, they'd lose their jobs.
Oh,
because you're not allowed to criticize Jews.
Yeah, who was it, Voltaire, that said you can tell who your masters are, who your rulers are, by who you're not allowed to criticize?
Yeah.
And by the way, it was a Jewish rabbi, Rabbi Weiss, that said, some call it communism, I call it Judaism for the masses. You know, if you try to point out that the Jews, Stalin, that ran Stalin, like Lenin and Marx, the so-called founder of communism, they were all Jewish. Well, that was a capable offense in the Soviet Union. That means they put a bullet to your head, a gun to your head, and pulled the trigger, and busted a cap in your brain. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who did the Gulag Archipelago, who was thrown in prison, said, how we chafed in the prison camps, thinking if we had just taken up machetes and axes and picks and killed some of these people, as they came to arrest our neighbors, we might have had a different situation for 60 or 70 years.
Yeah. So the veterans of all things, I mean, these guys went overseas like idiots. They killed Afghans and Iraqis in wholesale lots for the Jews. They did what they were told. They got messed up mentally, and they're all they do have psychological problems from the crimes they committed for the Jews. And the Jews know it. And the Jews know that they are trained in weapons and tactics, and that they're probably kind of pissed off at the way they've been treated ever since they got back home, and the way they were treated in theater. So they're afraid of them. Jews are afraid of any Gentile with a gun. I mean, that's what terrifies a Jew and keeps him up at night, is the thought of a Gentile with a gun. And especially somebody they trained and brainwashed to kill for them, and then double-crossed them with no benefits, taking away their benefits.
By the way, that's what they did. That's what they did with the police officers in the Soviet Union. They got the police officers to round up the guns and the weapons and throw some of the resistors into the gulags. But after they had taken away all the weapons from all the Russians, then they killed the police officers and took their weapons too.
Yeah, this is the Jewish method. We just aren't up to speed on it. Everybody else in the world knows the Jewish method. Americans, they got their heads up their butts. They don't know about Jews because Christianity, the news media, and their educational system has sheltered the Jews from the truth. So anyway, I think we really have, every chance I get, I talk about Brandon Robb, the ex-Marine in his 20s who was in Iraq and I think also in Afghanistan as a Marine. He was an engineer in the Marines, which means, you know, they built bridges and stuff like that. He wasn't a hardcore assassin, although he did see action over there. But he came back and dropped out of the Marines and started a business in the Richmond, Virginia area, maybe 2 or 3 little businesses. But he and his brother and his sister and I think his mother had a little private thing going on Facebook, maybe with a couple other people, I'm not sure. But it was private. I don't know anything about Facebook. I hate the whole concept. But I think this was a private version. I don't think it was open to others. But nevertheless, on this Facebook thing they were doing, they criticized the government mildly, suggested that the government may have had some previous or prior knowledge about 9/11, and criticized Cheney, I guess, but nothing like me. I mean, they weren't in my category, even anywhere near it. They were just kind of immature kids talking about rock and roll lyrics and having a good time on Facebook and barbecuing, and this is what they fought for. What he fought for. However, one day last year in October, I think it was, or August. No, it was August. Brandon and his brother and his sister and maybe some others were barbecuing in the backyard, and about 5 cars rolled in. Some federal cars and some local cop cars. Knocked on the door. Brandon went to the door in his shorts, no shirt, no shoes, and said, "What's going on?" "Hey, Brandon," the FBI guy said, we've been seeing your stuff on Facebook, and we're worried about you." "Worried about me? What do you mean?" "Well, we're worried about you, man, and we just want to talk." "Oh, okay." So he starts naively explaining what he was doing on Facebook. He had his reasons. Well, the local cops, after a minute or so, got kind of impatient and knocked him down. Knocked his legs out, his feet out from under him, knocked him down, put the cuffs on him, and stuffed him in a squad car. The FBI agent, and there was Secret Service there, FBI, another federal agency, and the locals. The FBI prick leaned in the window and said, "You're not under arrest, Brandon. We're worried about you." And he was taken to the VA psych ward. He was analyzed briefly by some quack in the VA who said he needed another 30 days examination, and Brandon disappeared. So his mom, got outraged, got on Facebook and put the word out what had happened to her son, the veteran, the Marine. So other veterans got in the act. They approached John Whitehead at the Rutherford Institute, a civil rights law firm in Virginia, and he got involved. Thank goodness. 5 days later, Whitehead finally found a friendly judge who ordered the release of Brandon from custody. In the meantime, however, Brandon had been transferred from Richmond VA to the Roanoke VA, some 3 hours to the west, so that nobody could talk to him from his family or his lawyers. While he was in Roanoke, before the court order reached the psychiatric institution, a psychiatrist came into Brandon's cell, pulled out a chair, sat down, and said, "Brandon, I'm going to brainwash you." Brandon said, "You what?" "I'm going to medicate you forcibly." And luckily, before this could happen, before this procedure could be accomplished, the court order arrived at the Roanoke VA psych ward, and Brandon was released. But during the 5 days that John Whitehead was feverishly trying to get his client released, he was told by veterans and by newsmen in the Richmond area that they had investigated. And an average of 20,000 people, mostly veterans, every year in Virginia alone are disappeared in the exact same way that Brandon was disappeared. Some of them are released, and some of them are not. So that's what we're up against. We have to tell the story of Brandon Robb, because in that we have the evidence, what is planned for us. Soviet-style psychiatric prison, where we're faced with lobotomies, chemical lobotomies. That's what that quack meant when he said, "I'm going to medicate you forcibly." And then he was going to give him a chemical lobotomy, which would have rendered Brandon into a vegetable or totally harmless. So that's what we're up against, people. You can wake up from your reverie and your incredulity over what I'm saying. Check it out.
That is what they tried to do to me when the accident back in 2004, May 20th, 2004, when that accident failed to kill me. They drugged me for 3 months on Halcyon, Haldol, Valium, and morphine. I showed that to a friend of mine who worked in psychiatric hospitals, and she looked at my medical records and said, they were trying to drive you crazy. They were trying to, these drugs mixed together, there's warnings on them, don't mix these drugs. Don't mix these drugs. They were feeding me morphine, Halcyon, Haldol, Valium, and she said they were trying to kill. I think they either tried to overdose me. That's probably where they made their mistake. Hard to overdose an old biker. And when that failed, they tried to they sent the third team in. 2 spooks came in saying they were CIA. Don't know who they were. It could have been anybody. It could have been Mossad. They could have been anybody. But they said, "Have you been hallucinating, Clay?" And I had been, but I hadn't told anybody, so how would they know? I said, "Yeah, a little bit." And I finally told them, "Well, it was a nice high, boys, but wasn't nearly as good as that acid you brought in the 60s. Now get out of my hospital." Then they sent in the third team, which was a woman with a 6-inch syringe, 3-inch needle on it, filled with a purple liquid. "Hi, Mr. Douglas, I got to give you this injection." "I don't think so." "What is that? What is that stuff?" "Well, it's just a tranquilizer." "Well, lady, I don't feel like being tranquil today, so I'm going to pass. Thank you anyway." "Oh, but I have to give you this. No, ma'am, I got the right to refuse medication. I don't know who you are. I don't know what that was. If that was Kool-Aid, it'd kill a horse. No, I'm not taking that. I'm going to go get security. They're going to hold you down, and I'm going to give it to you." "Well, go get them, lady." She brought back 4 uniformed security guards. We had a little conversation. I told them I wasn't taking that, and if they tried to give it to me, I told them what I was going to do to them. I called it the best bluff I ever pulled in my life, because I had lost 100 pounds. I hadn't eaten anything for 3 months. I might not have been able to do what I said I would do to them, but they didn't want to find out. And a week later, I was out of the hospital, but make sure you get guardianship. He may never be the same again. Make sure he takes this Depakote. Make sure he takes this medication. My response was, "I'm not taking any medication. The only thing I need is a joint and a Harley, and that's it. That's all I'm going to do." So they ended up breaking me financially, $750,000 hospital bill, but my mind's still intact. And I watched them do this to students from one of the first students shot at Columbine. And these people, they're ruthless. It's the medications they give you. And by the way, you know, they're giving people for treating people for PSTD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. And my God, if I'd been over killing innocent civilians in Iraq or Vietnam or Afghanistan, and I didn't have some kind of post-traumatic stress syndrome, I call it conscience, then I would have to be sick. And that's the people that have the guns now, the people that don't have any stress about killing civilians or ordering innocent people out of their homes in Watertown, Boston, or Massachusetts.
Yeah, I like that. You can't overdose an old biker. That's pretty good. But let's remember those scenes in Boston with these like a bunch of geese wearing black going down the sidewalk. I mean, these guys have obviously never had any military training or experience, or they would never bunch up that way, because that's how you take them all out with one machine gun belt. They're supposed to spread out. I mean, I shouldn't be saying this, but let's face it, watching these clowns bunching up, going down the sidewalk with their stupid little rifles waving in all directions, I mean, they were terrified. They have no experience, they have no knowledge, they have nothing, no training. You don't bunch up like that. And anyway, but they were perfect targets. They could have been taken out right now because they had no idea what they were doing. So let's think in those terms. You know, we got to stop thinking about being victims and start thinking about being the tough guys, because we're Americans. We're paying the bills. Let's start thinking tough here and winning this thing and putting an end to this police state, because it's all a bluff. It's all a stinking bluff. I mean, how in the hell are a handful of cops or even soldiers going to deal with Americans? You know, in Pennsylvania alone, there's 1.4 licensed deer hunters. I mean, that's just one state. Pennsylvania alone has more men under arms and the knowledge how to use them effectively than any army in the world. That's just one state. We gotta realize our power, our massive firepower that we have. I mean, it doesn't take into account Michigan or Wisconsin or Texas or California or West Virginia. My God, you can't pull this stuff off against guys with guns who know how to use them and are willing to use them. My job, our job, is to liberate these guys with the guns and make it okay, authorize them to use these guns to defend this country from the parasite class. That's what we have to do. We got more guns than we know what to do with. The question is, do we have the will to use them? And my job, your job, is to say, yes, you have the will, we have the will, and we're going to use them, and we're going to defend this country from the parasites.
In the chat room, they actually got something straight here. The Boston bombing was designed to bring in more laws and restrictions, and that is evident from all the photography. And by the way, the guy supposedly with his legs blown off, how do you blow somebody's legs off without any blood, you know?
With a pressure cooker.
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, right. The pressure cooker didn't fit in those bags. So, and what were those guys doing walking around with the camo or the khaki pants and the khaki boots, and with the little what looked like detonators in their hands, and the backpacks on their backs? Were those the logo on their caps was that of the Navy SEALs, but we don't know if they were SEALs or if they were Blackwater, whatever the name Blackwater is now.
Z.
Z?
Yeah, it's called Z. Yeah, XE is pronounced Z. Now, you know, Z, or Blackwater, is owned by Monsanto. And I believe Monsanto is mostly owned by Bill Gates, which is kind of ironic. Kraft International is the group in the pictures at the finish line. That was started by this lying psychopath, Chris Kyle, who was himself murdered a few months ago.
Now, tell me about Chris Kyle. I've seen him mentioned a couple of times, but I'm not familiar with him. What was his deal? Who was that? What was he up to?
Well, he was a SEAL, and he was a sniper over in Iraq. They called him the Devil of Ramadi or some crap legend. He killed 150 Iraqis from a long distance with his Remington or Winchester, whatever the hell he had. And he's very proud of every one of those murders. He said privately that he killed a lot more than that, but he got credited with 150. He started Craft International 4 years ago. Alex Jones said, oh, he's a pretty good guy, actually. He believed in the Second Amendment. Okay. But it's kind of ironic because Chris Kyle is the one who claimed he sucker punched Jesse Ventura in a bar in Coronado. And Jesse Ventura took great exception to that lie and sued Chris Kyle, and they were in court. And Chris Kyle wasn't doing very well on deposition, or actually in the witness chair under examination by Ventura's attorneys. And it was pretty obvious that he'd lied about sucker punching Ventura. So I suspected that the lie was going to get him killed because it brought great shame and disgrace to Craft International and I think Craft is a spin-off of Blackwater. I think that's pretty obvious. It's a CIA front. I mean, the SEALs are CIA assassins, just like Special Forces are CIA assassins. The CIA has to have military guys that obey CIA orders and are outside the military chain of command, so that the CIA has control of them. And once you're in a SEAL team or on a Special Forces, Green Beret thing, you're CIA all the way, and the rest of your life you're expected to obey CIA orders. So Craft International was just another CIA proprietary, like Evergreen or Air America or Blackwater. It was just a murder for hire outfit, and there are lots of them now.
I volunteered for the Green Berets, but they tried to kill me before I got there, and so I never went to Vietnam. And they offered me a pension, but I told them, I don't want anything from the government. So they put me out 10 days before all my veterans benefits came due, or a week before that came due. And but I have no controls, and I don't go to the VA, so I'm healthy. The VA, I just had a guest on a few days ago, last week, who is talking about the VA and the treatment of the veterans, and about the very thing we're talking about. They're trying to drug the veterans. They're giving them these psycho medications that are destroying their mind. But the average person out there, they're being done, the same things being done to them. My grandmother and my mother were drug addicts, and I had no idea until I took one of my grandmother's sleeping pills. Whew! Granny, no wonder you've been stumbling around. And that's what they're doing. I mean, they're medicating. They got a 1,000% markup on these medications, on Luvox and Valium and that kind of thing. The markup on it's more. They got more of a markup on that than they do the heroin they're bringing in. Now, where's all that opium going that our troops are guarding over there? By the way, you can call in. We got 15 minutes left. I'll take some calls. If we got anybody that's not brain dead out there, you can call in at 855-655-8453, extension 805, extension 805. I'll repeat that one time. 855-655-8453, extension 805. Or you can call in at 347-688-2902. And, you know, I don't want to hear any of this drivel that I'm getting from the people, some of the people in the chat room. You know, when they listed me in armed and dangerous, when the ADL listed me in armed and dangerous, I called them up and I said, well, you know what, you assholes finally got something right. I am armed, and you mess with my family, you mess with my country, I'm definitely dangerous. Yeah, call in, Heisenberg. I've actually talked to you. I've actually
spoken to you. Let's not discriminate against the brain dead.
What's that?
I said, let's not discriminate against the brain dead. I'll talk to anybody.
Well, call in, Heisenberg. I've actually spoken to you. I've been in a chat room with you, and you almost had a little bit of common sense there. So, you know, you feel free to call in 855-655-8453, extension 805. We'll listen. See, we're supposed to have 10,000 people listening to this show. Love to hear from a few of you. And you know, even J. Edgar Hoover, that cross-dressing fag, he even had it correct a couple of things. He said, you know, the average man is stunned or overwhelmed when he comes face to face with a conspiracy so vast that he just can't comprehend anybody being that evil. But President Kennedy tried to tell you that, didn't they? I mean, he tried to tell you of a conspiracy that utilized the military, utilized everything. He was talking about the bankers. He tried to do something about it. He tried to do something about that. It was called Executive Order 11110, which issued United States notes. And I got one of those in my pocket. I know they exist. Red seal, not a green seal. Says United States notes issued in 1963. And the first thing that other shill, whatever you want to call him, LBJ, did, the first thing he did as president after being sworn in on Air Force One was recall all of that constitutional money. So we only got a few bills floating around.
Yeah, he issued about over $4 billion in those U.S. notes, and he was planning to replace the Federal Reserve note with the U.S. note, which is a debt-free currency. That would have been the most revolutionary, fantastic thing in the history of America. He issued those that $4 billion in twos and fives in April of '63, and he was dead about 6 or 7 months later. I think that was the basic reason, and other people think it was the war, or is it war with the CIA, or other things. Maybe the demands that Israelis give up their A-bomb, a nuclear bomb program. I mean, he made a lot of enemies. You know, there were lots of reasons to kill him. But I think that the debt-free currency that he issued was a major reason.
My friend, his name was Galen Dougherty. He was sitting on the railroad bridge over Elm Street and saw two snipers in suits shoot Kennedy. I chewed him out about it 40 years later. I said, you know who I am, you know what I do, Box. Why didn't you tell me about that sooner? He goes, I wanted to live. I couldn't argue with him.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, here we got these two Chechens, supposedly. I mean, there's more your false flag, another, you know, dual Timothy McVeigh. And Timothy McVeigh, by the way, I published his death certificate. He was still in the U.S. Army when they supposedly executed him. However, the witnesses that were there said his eyes were still moving. So he was still breathing when they rolled him out of the room.
He certainly expected to survive the execution. He negotiated a no autopsy deal, and his buddies, I didn't know he had any buddies, but supposedly his buddies were also allowed to take his body away, and they rigged up a 3-van deception, just like in the movies, so that nobody knew exactly which van contained his dead body, and it disappeared for cremation. And whether or not I think he did survive the execution, and I think he expected to. You know, a friend of mine was a good friend of Roger Charles, who was on McVeigh's defense team. He was an investigator, ex-Marine colonel, and actually a former producer with ABC News. Roger Charles told my friend that McVeigh would not cooperate with his own defense team because he said he expected his colleagues in Special Forces were going to rescue him, and that the whole trial was a sham. He didn't want anything to do with it. And then when the FBI was shown to have suppressed thousands of documents just before the execution, Stephen Jones got a delay, and McVeigh was impatient. He said, "No, let's just go ahead with it." He expected to survive that execution, and I really think that he did.
Yeah, probably a little plastic surgery, and now he's sitting on the beach in Saudi Arabia somewhere. By the way, Saudi Arabia, the royal family of Saudi Arabia, they're Jewish. Descended from a Jewish trader. That's why they get special privileges. Sure. That's why Israel doesn't ever threaten Saudi Arabia.
Exactly.
Somebody mentioned the Koch brothers, K-O-C-H brothers, as amongst the rulers of this planet. What do you know about them?
Well, they're Jewish. They were raised as Christians, apparently. They made their fortune pretty much in the transportation of oil, the pipelines, and so forth. I don't know that much about them. I know that they're not on our side. They're just greedy guys who are some of the richest men in America. But they are ethnic Jews, supposedly with this Christian conversion.
Well, we got people like Lynn Horowitz, who's supposedly a Messianic Christian, and I actually watched him transform in an elevator. I had to go up to David Icke later and apologize to David. You know, David, I was a little hesitant to buy into your reptilian theory until I watched one of them transform in the elevator. He said, yeah, they do that when they get really, really angry. And Horowitz really angry at me because I had run a story. I didn't write the story. I just qualified it. I titled it, "Do Jews Run the World? And is it hate to ask that question?" He called me up. why did you run that without checking with me? I said, when did I ever check with you? When did I ever check with you before I ran a story? Nobody controls what I publish. And by the way, I don't take orders either. By the way, I've got freedoms slips up on my website in 3 or 4 places, so you can't tell me what to say and what to do on my own show, Gerber. All right. My guest is J.B. Campbell. We've got a list for him. If you want to make a donation, I suggest you donate to Revolution Radio. Night Hawk is doing a good job, and you've got a variety of hosts on here. You know, some talk about psychics and reading people's minds, and yeah, I've done that too. I interviewed a Chandler and interviewed both John and John Jr. Kennedy. Whether they were real or not, I don't know, but they knew things that not many people are aware of, so who knows? Who knows? I mean, I've got people that say they talk to aliens. I got people that say they talk to God. Maybe they're talking to the same people. Maybe they're talking to the devil. I don't know. I even, I question the Bible. The Old Testament, the God of the Old Testament, I think could have been a pretender, another one of these warfare by deceptions, kill all the children, bang their heads or smash their heads against the rocks. I think that was the Jewish God, and in the novels that'll come out this year that I started 45 years ago, Yahweh, it was not the good guy. He was simply the one. He was simply the one that led us down the wrong path and started giving us the religion, what I called in one of my articles in the magazine, I called the Pauline Christianity. All right, we're out of time, folks. Go to freeamerican.com. Read the articles, read the links, and support the Revolution Radio and support Clay Douglas. Thank you, J.B. Campbell, and I'm sure J.B. could use a donation too. God bless you all. Thanks.
Thank you for being on here this morning, J.B. Clay, thank you. And I'll talk to you in a little bit.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
I bet you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.